I never thought silence could hurt this much. It's been 2 years since my daughter stopped talking to me. 2 long, quiet years. And I still don't know why. Every morning, I sit at this same wooden table, the one I built with my own hands when she was little. I can still picture her tiny fingers painting it with her favorite color, sky blue. Back then, she'd look up at me and say, "Daddy, promise me you'll always be here." And I promised. God, I promised. But promises don't mean much when someone you love just disappears from your life without saying goodbye. It all started the day of her wedding. That morning, I woke up early, put on my best suit, and stared in the mirror for what felt like forever. I wanted to look perfect. Not for anyone else, but for her. My little girl, my pride, my everything. She looked like her mother that day, beautiful, glowing, the kind of beauty that comes from innocence and hope. When she saw me, she ran into my arms, whispering, "Don't cry, Daddy. It's my happy day." But I cried anyway, because I knew, when a daughter walks down that aisle, she's not just walking toward her future. She's walking away from her father's home. Still, I was proud. I gave her hand to her husband, Daniel. A smart, charming young man, always polite, always smiling. He shook my hand and promised me, "Sir, I'll take care of her like you always did." I believed him. God help me, I believed him. But after the wedding, everything changed. At first, her calls became less frequent. Then the text stopped. And before I could understand what was happening, she stopped visiting altogether. I left messages, wrote letters, even drove to their house once. But she never answered the door. I thought maybe I'd done something wrong. Maybe I'd offended her, or maybe she just needed space. But 2 years of silence? 2 years without hearing her voice. Not even on my birthday. That's not distance. That's something else. And the worst part? I kept seeing her husband around town. He'd smile politely, wave, and say, "She's just been busy, sir." Busy. For 2 years. It didn't feel right. I could feel it in my bones. Something was wrong. But I'm an old man. Nobody listens to old men when they say, "I have a bad feeling." Then last month, something strange happened. A letter arrived in my mailbox. No name, no return address, just my name written in a handwriting that looked familiar. Inside was a short note. "If you want to know why she stopped talking to you, look inside the wooden box you gave her on her wedding day." My heart almost stopped. That box, it was something I'd made for her years ago. A handmade jewelry box with a small carving of a rose on top. I gave it to her as a wedding gift, told her to keep her most precious memories inside. I hadn't thought about it in years. The next morning, I drove to their house. I didn't care if Daniel was home or not. When I got there, no one answered the door, but the back window was slightly open. I don't even know what came over me. Maybe desperation, maybe love, maybe both. I climbed in. The house smelled like lavender and coffee, the way my daughter always loved it. My heart ached just being there. I found the box in her old dresser, tucked behind some scarves. It was dusty, like it hadn't been touched in years. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were small things, her old bracelet, a photo of us at the beach, a pressed flower from her wedding bouquet, and under those a folded envelope. It had my name on it, written in her handwriting. I froze. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. I unfolded the letter slowly, terrified of what I might read. But before I could finish the first line, the front door opened. "Mr. Harris?" a voice said. I turned. It was Daniel. His face went pale when he saw what I was holding. "Where did you get that?" he snapped. I said quietly, "She wrote it to me, didn't she?" He stepped closer, his voice low, threatening. "You shouldn't be here." And in that moment, I saw something in his eyes, fear. Not anger, fear. That's when I knew. Whatever was written in that letter, it wasn't meant for me to find. But I was done being silent. I slipped the letter into my jacket and walked past him without a word. That night, I sat alone in my living room, the letter trembling in my hands. I wasn't ready to read it. Not yet. My heart wasn't strong enough. But I knew one thing. Whatever was inside that envelope would change everything. And before I tell you what I found, I want to ask you something. If the person you love most suddenly stopped talking to you, would you walk away? Or would you fight to know the truth no matter how much it hurts? Because the truth, it always finds its way home. That night, I sat for hours staring at that letter. You ever hold something so powerful in your hands that it feels like it's burning right through your skin? That's what it felt like. I wanted to open it, but my hands, they just wouldn't move. My mind kept whispering, what if it's something you can't bear to know? But I had to know. I had to. So, around midnight, I took a deep breath, turned on the lamp beside my chair, and slowly opened it. Her handwriting, God, I hadn't seen it in so long. Just the way she looped her Y's brought me back to when she used to write me birthday cards in crayon. I could almost hear her voice saying, love you, Daddy. But what she wrote this time, it wasn't love. It was pain. Dad, if you're reading this, then somehow Daniel didn't destroy it. He made me promise not to talk to you. Said it was for your safety. But I don't even know what that means anymore. I wanted to tell you everything. But he's always here, always listening. Please, if anything happens to me, don't trust him. I felt my chest tighten so hard I couldn't breathe. Daniel? The polite, soft-spoken man who swore he'd take care of her? Why would she say something like that? He found out about the letter Mom left me. The one from before she died. He doesn't want you to know about it. But I think it's about something you did, Dad. Something he's using to keep us apart. My hands started to shake. A letter from her mother? My late wife, Margaret? She died 10 years ago. And in all that time, I never knew she left a letter for our daughter. I remember that day so vividly. The hospital lights, the quiet hum of machines, her soft hand in mine as she whispered, take care of her. There was never a mention of a letter. Not once. So what was in it? And what could Daniel possibly know that would make my daughter cut me out of her life? The rest of her letter ended abruptly. I'll hide Mom's letter somewhere safe. If you ever find this, look for the truth where the sun never reaches. I read that line over and over again. Where the sun never reaches. What did she mean? My mind spun in circles until I realized it had to be the basement. That's where I kept everything old, boxes, memories, forgotten things. That's where she used to play as a kid, building little forts out of cardboard and pretending she was a princess locked in a tower. I hadn't been down there in months, maybe years. But that night, I grabbed my flashlight and walked down those creaky wooden steps. The smell hit me first. Old dust, rust, and something else I couldn't quite place. I searched every shelf, every box. Nothing. Then, behind an old workbench, I noticed a loose wooden panel. It looked newer than the others. I pried it open with a screwdriver, and there it was, a small metal tin, taped shut with brown masking tape. On top, faint writing in my wife's hand. For her when she's ready. I don't remember the last time I cried that hard. Just seeing her handwriting again was enough to break me. I opened the tin. Inside was a folded letter, yellowed with age. And before I even read a single word, I heard a sound behind me. Footsteps. I turned, flashlight shaking in my hand. Daniel, I called. No answer. The basement door creaked slightly. Someone was up there, watching. I took the letter, slipped it into my pocket, and climbed the stairs slowly. But when I opened the door, no one was there. Only the soft ticking of the old hallway clock. The next morning, I drove to my daughter's house again. I didn't care what Daniel said last time. This was my family, my truth. When I got there, a car I didn't recognize was parked outside. The front door was slightly open. I knocked, waited, nothing. Lila, I called out. Silence. I stepped inside. The house was empty, except for something lying on the kitchen counter. A photograph. It was the three of us. Me, Lila, and Margaret at the lake house years ago. But someone had written on it in black marker. You should have told her the truth. My stomach dropped. What truth? That's when the front door opened. And there stood Daniel, looking exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. Mr. Harris, he said coldly. I warned you to stay out of this. What did you do to her? I demanded. He smirked. Nothing you didn't start. Before I could reply, he walked past me and locked himself in his office. I could hear drawers opening, papers shuffling, something metallic clattering on the floor. I took my chance. While he was distracted, I slipped out quietly and went home. That night, I finally opened the second letter, the one from my wife. Her words, they destroyed me. If you're reading this, my love, it means I couldn't tell you before the end. You must know, our daughter isn't truly yours. The room went silent. Everything, every heartbeat, every memory, froze. I dropped the paper. My vision blurred. My hands trembled uncontrollably. My wife had kept that from me all those years. And Daniel, he must have known. That's why he was keeping my daughter away. He had control. He had leverage. But why would he use it to destroy her relationship with me? What was he gaining from this? That's when I realized something darker. Maybe he wasn't after her love. Maybe he was after what she inherited. Something inside me changed that night. The old man full of regret, he died right there. The next morning, I wasn't just a grieving father anymore. I was a man on a mission. And before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you this. If someone tried to erase your child from your life using lies, would you forgive them? Or would you make sure they finally pay for every tear you've shed? Because after what I discovered next, there was no going back. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my wife's letter. Her words kept echoing in my head. Our daughter isn't truly yours. Do you know what that does to a man? To wake up one day and realize that everything you built your life around might be a lie? That every bedtime story, every scraped knee you kissed, every "I love you, Daddy," might not have belonged to you at all? But love doesn't vanish with blood. Lila was mine. Maybe not by DNA, but by every heartbeat I'd ever given her. I raised her. I loved her. That was enough. Still, I needed answers. Why had Margaret kept that secret? Why had Daniel used it to tear us apart? And most of all, why did my daughter have to suffer for a truth she never asked for? The next morning, I drove to an old address I hadn't visited in decades. Margaret's sister, Evelyn. She was the only one who might know the truth. When she opened the door, her face went pale. "Oh my God! You look just like her," she whispered. I didn't waste time. I pulled out the letter and said, "Did you know about this?" Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She nodded slowly. "Margaret told me, just before she passed." I felt my chest tighten. "So it's true? Lila isn't mine. She is yours," Evelyn said softly. "In every way that matters. But, biologically, no. Margaret made a mistake years ago, before you two were married. She was terrified of losing you. When she found out she was pregnant, she didn't know what to do. Then she fell in love with you for real. You saved her from herself." I sat down, the world spinning around me. "Who was he?" Evelyn hesitated, then said quietly, "A man named Thomas Reed. He died before Lila was born." That name, I knew it. I had seen it recently. My heart skipped. Daniel's company, Reed and Sons Construction. I froze. "Evelyn, Daniel's last name is Reed." Her face went white. Oh my God. It all made sense. Daniel wasn't just some stranger who married my daughter. He was Thomas Reed's son. And that meant he knew the truth long before I did. He'd used it, controlled her, kept her away from me, maybe out of revenge, maybe for something even worse. I drove home trembling, every thought burning. My daughter, my little girl, had married the son of the man her mother once loved, and she didn't even know it. When I got home, I found my basement door open again. The same faint smell of cologne lingered in the air. Daniel had been there. I rushed downstairs, and sure enough, the place was a mess. Boxes overturned, papers scattered. He was looking for something, but he hadn't found the one thing that mattered, Margaret's letter. I locked it away in my safe. Later that night, I called my daughter from a hidden number. To my surprise, she answered. Her voice was trembling. "Dad." My throat tightened. "Lila, sweetheart, it's me." She didn't hang up, but I could hear her breathing heavy. I can't talk long. If he finds out. Listen to me, I said, my voice shaking. You're in danger. Daniel isn't who you think he is. Silence. Then she whispered, I know. That one word shattered me. You know? I said, stunned. She started crying. He told me last month. Said if I ever tried to see you again, he'd ruin you. He showed me papers, Mom's letter, your name, everything. He said you weren't my real father, that you lied to me my whole life. I could barely speak. Sweetheart, I didn't even know until I found your letter. More silence. Just quiet sobbing on the other end. Dad, I'm so sorry, she whispered. He took everything. My phone, my accounts. I can't leave. He watches me. My blood ran cold. I realized then that this wasn't just about family secrets anymore. It was control, manipulation, abuse. I said softly, I'm coming for you. I don't care what it takes. She whispered something then, barely audible. He keeps everything in his office. In the basement. The same one Mom mentioned in her letter. That's where the truth is. Before I could say another word, the call dropped. I sat there frozen, clutching the phone like it was a lifeline. And that's when I decided I wasn't waiting any longer. That night, I took my old revolver out of its case. It had been years since I'd held it. A relic from my days in the army. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I wasn't going to lose my daughter again. The next morning, I drove to their house at dawn. The streets were quiet. The sky painted with the first light of morning. I slipped around the back and found the basement door unlocked. Like someone wanted me to come in. Inside it was dark. The air smelled of damp concrete and metal. I found Daniel's office door and pushed it open. On the desk were dozens of folders, photographs, documents, and letters, including copies of my wife's handwriting. And right in the center, a marriage certificate, Daniel Reed and Lila Harris. Below it, a file labeled Estate Assets. I opened it. My hands went cold. Inside were documents transferring my house, my land, and my late wife's trust fund, all set to transfer to Daniel if something ever happened to me. He wasn't just tearing us apart emotionally. He was planning to erase me completely. I heard a noise behind me. A click. A gun. Daniel stood there, smirking. You just couldn't stay away, could you, old man? Why? I demanded. Why her? Why me? He took a step closer, his voice low. Because your wife ruined my father's life. She left him for you. He died alone because of her. You took everything from us. Now I'm just returning the favor. My blood ran cold. You married her to get revenge? He smiled. To destroy what you love most. For a moment the room spun. I thought I might faint. Then I saw something behind him. A shadow, moving silently down the stairs. It was Lila. Her eyes were red, her face pale, but she looked determined. Daniel, she said quietly, put the gun down. He turned, startled. Go upstairs. But she didn't. She looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Dad, I found the letter Mom left for you. I know everything now. For the first time in 2 years. She called me Dad. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. If someone threatened to destroy your family, would you beg for mercy, or would you finally take back everything they stole from you? Because that night, Mercy died, and the truth came out. You never really know what kind of man you are until you're standing between your child and the person who wants to hurt them. That night, I found out exactly what kind of man I was. Daniel stood there, pointing that gun at me, and behind him my daughter stood shaking, tears streaming down her face. I could see the fear in her eyes, but I could also see something else. Defiance. She wasn't that fragile girl anymore. She took a step forward. Daniel, please, she whispered. Put it down. This isn't you. He laughed. A cold, broken laugh. You don't even know who I am, Lila. I do now, she said quietly. You married me for revenge. You used me to hurt my father. But you forgot something. He frowned. And what's that? She lifted her chin, her voice trembling but steady. You forgot that love doesn't break as easily as hate does. His jaw clenched. You think you can walk away from me? After everything I've done for you? I spoke softly, trying not to provoke him. Daniel, listen to me. It doesn't have to end like this. He snapped toward me. You don't get to talk about endings, old man. My father died because of your wife's lies. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up watching your family rot from the inside out while you sit here playing perfect husband and father? His voice cracked. I saw it then. The pain, the hatred, the broken boy still trapped inside him. But it didn't excuse what he'd done. Lila whispered, Please, Daniel. Let's just go. We can fix this. He looked at her for a long, agonizing moment, then shook his head. There's no fixing what's broken. He raised the gun. I didn't think. I just moved. Everything happened in seconds. The sound of the gunshot, the flash of light, my ears ringing, Lila's scream echoing in the dark basement. I fell to my knees, clutching my shoulder. The pain was sharp, burning through every nerve. I looked up just in time to see Lila grab the gun, struggling with Daniel. Stop it! She cried, tears blinding her. It's over. He pushed her back hard. Too hard. She hit the concrete wall with a thud and cried out. That sound, that one sound ripped something open inside me. Before I knew what I was doing, I was on my feet again, grabbing the nearest thing. An old wrench from the workbench. Dad, no! She screamed. But it was too late. I swung. Once. Twice. The gun fell from Daniel's hand. He collapsed, dazed, blood pooling beneath him. For a long time, no one moved. The only sound was the rain outside hitting the small basement window. Then Lila crawled toward me, sobbing. Dad, your shoulder. Oh God, you're bleeding. I held her close, ignoring the pain. It's okay, sweetheart. It's over. You're safe now. We stayed like that for what felt like forever. Just a father and daughter holding on to what little was left of their world. Then she pulled away, her voice trembling. Dad, I'm so sorry for believing him, for shutting you out. I smiled weakly. You were trying to love him. That's never something to be sorry for. She cried harder. He said you didn't want me, that you were ashamed. I brushed the hair from her face. Lila, there's not a single second in my life I wasn't proud of you. You're my daughter. That's all that matters. Her lips trembled. Even if I'm not. I stopped her. Don't ever say that again. You are my blood, my soul, my everything. You were born from love, and love is what raised you. That's all that counts. For the first time in 2 years, she smiled through her tears. But peace, it doesn't last long in stories like mine. I heard sirens in the distance. Someone must have called the police. Maybe a neighbor heard the gunshot. I looked down at Daniel. He was still breathing, barely. His hand twitched. I took a deep breath. Go upstairs, Lila. Tell them everything. She shook her head. I'm not leaving you. You have to, I said firmly. They need to know you were just defending yourself. That he tried to kill us. Her tears returned, but she nodded. She squeezed my hand before running up the stairs. The sirens grew louder. The basement lights flickered, then went out completely, leaving only the faint glow of dawn through the window. I sat there beside Daniel, bleeding and shaking. He looked up at me weakly, his voice barely a whisper. You ruined my family. I swallowed hard. No, Daniel. Your hate did. He coughed, blood staining his lips. She never told you, did she? My heart skipped. Told me what? His eyes met mine, full of something I couldn't name, regret, maybe. She loved my father. Even after she married you. I froze. She told him. If he ever had a son, she wanted him to find her daughter. To take care of her. He smiled faintly. Guess I did. And with that, his eyes went still. For a moment I just sat there, numb. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Had my wife really loved another man all along? Or was Daniel just trying to twist the knife one last time? When the police arrived, they found me slumped against the wall, bleeding, with Daniel's lifeless body beside me. They took me to the hospital, asked 100 questions, but I barely heard any of them. My mind was stuck on one thing, that last sentence. Even now, I don't know if it was true. Maybe I never will. But what I do know is this: hate may bury love for a while, but it never kills it completely. Because when Lila walked into that hospital room later, holding my hand, I knew one thing for sure. I hadn't lost her. Not this time. Before I tell you what happened in the days that followed, when everything came full circle, let me ask you something. If the truth you found could heal your heart but destroy the memory of someone you once loved, would you still want to know it? Because sometimes, knowing is the most painful thing of all. It's strange how quiet a house becomes after the storm. The day after everything happened, I came home from the hospital with my arm in a sling and a heart heavier than ever. The police had ruled it self-defense, no charges. Daniel was gone. His family never showed up to claim him. It was like he'd vanished from the world, leaving only ashes and echoes behind. The news called it a domestic tragedy. But for me, it was the end of something that had already been dying for years. My daughter moved back in with me for a while. At first, it was awkward, the silence between us filled with ghosts. Every time she looked at me, I saw guilt in her eyes. Every time I looked at her, I saw pain in mine. But healing doesn't happen overnight. It comes in moments. Small, quiet moments that creep up on you when you least expect them. Like one morning when I woke up to the smell of pancakes, the same way her mother used to make them. I walked into the kitchen, and there she was, flipping them like she used to when she was 12. "Morning, Dad," she said softly. That one word, Dad, broke me. I had to turn away just so she wouldn't see the tears in my eyes. We sat and ate in silence for a while. Then she said, "I found something while cleaning the attic." She placed a small, faded envelope on the table. My heart skipped. It was addressed to me, in my wife's handwriting. I froze. "Where did you find this?" "In one of Mom's old boxes," she said. "I think it was meant for you. Maybe she just never got the chance to give it." I hesitated before opening it. I wasn't sure I wanted another truth. But love, real love, deserves honesty, even if it hurts. I unfolded the letter slowly. "My love, if you're reading this, I know I never got to tell you everything. I made mistakes, the kind that haunt a heart forever. Yes, before we met, there was someone else. But please believe me when I say, the day I looked into your eyes, I stopped loving him. You were my home, my peace, my truth. Lila may not share your blood, but she carries your soul. You raised her with a kindness no man could fake. If one day the truth comes out, promise me you won't let it destroy you. Love isn't about who starts the story. It's about who stays until the end." When I finished reading, I couldn't speak. I just sat there, staring at the paper as tears fell onto the ink. My daughter reached for my hand. "Dad!" I looked at her, and all the anger, all the confusion, it just disappeared. I whispered, "Your mother loved us both, in her own way." She nodded, crying. "I know." For the first time in years, it felt like the air between us wasn't heavy anymore. Just quiet, honest. Days turned into weeks. We started fixing the house together. Repainting walls, cleaning the old garden, bringing life back to places that had been dark for too long. Sometimes we'd sit on the porch at sunset, just watching the world go by. She'd rest her head on my shoulder, and I'd feel that peace that only fathers understand, the kind that doesn't need words. But sometimes, late at night, I'd still find myself in the basement, standing in that same spot where it all happened. I'd look at the stains on the floor, the broken clock on the wall, and I'd whisper into the emptiness, "I forgive you, Daniel." Because hate, it's heavy, and I'd carried enough of it for one lifetime. One evening, as I was sitting in my chair, Lila came up to me holding a photo. It was the three of us again, me, her, and Margaret. But this time, she'd taped something new to it. A little note that said, "Family isn't about blood. It's about love that doesn't quit." I smiled. "That's something your mom would have said." She grinned faintly. "No, Dad. That's something you always said." I laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in years. You know, people think love stories always end with weddings and music. But that's not true. Some love stories end with forgiveness, with silence, with two broken hearts deciding to keep beating together. It's been 6 months now. The house feels warm again. There's laughter, the smell of pancakes, the sound of old country music playing on the radio. Sometimes I still talk to Margaret. I tell her about the garden, about how Lila's smiling again, how I finally let go of the past. And even though she's gone, I swear I can feel her listening. Maybe that's what real love is, not perfection, not forever, but presence. The kind that lingers even after everything else fades. So if you're listening to me right now, my friend, and you're holding on to guilt or pain or a love you lost long ago, let it go. Because life's too short to stay buried in the past. You can't change what people hide, but you can choose what you carry with you. And me, I choose peace. Before I say goodbye, let me ask you one last question. If love gave you pain but also gave you the strength to survive, would you wish you'd never loved at all? Because me, I'd live every heartbreak again, just to have one more day with the people I loved.